Here's where the first 9 chapters of Proverbs are so important, because they are a series of lectures that are developed very carefully. You can look at the structure in covenant documents, but they are very, very carefully patterned so that they place before this young man, and it has to be my son, my son. This is one place where we ought not to make gender neutral language. It's not my child, it's my son. Because in the Hebrew language, both wisdom and folly are feminine nouns, which means that this is a dating relationship, and this kid is being sent from home, and the parents know, the father or mother knows, that this kid is going to be enticed or is going to get into relationships with women. And there are 2 women in particular that are going to come after him, or at least are going to be present in his life. And however he responds to those 2 women will determine the rest of his life. If he follows folly, and you can see all of the warnings against folly, then the rest of the book of Proverbs means nothing at all. At the end of chapter 9, slam it shut, because it doesn't mean a thing. You have followed folly, you have gotten married to folly, go have your fun, and then you are self-destructing. That's the way it is with folly. But if you marry wisdom, what happens is that chapters 10 through 31 are in fact the pieces of furnishing in the house of wisdom, so that you move into the house with wisdom, you marry wisdom, and the Proverbs are not meant to be memorized any more than the details of the number of spoons you've got in the utensils drawer in the kitchen, or what items you have in the junk drawer, or how many hand towels you have in the linen closet. These are all pieces of the furnishing in the house of wisdom, so that you move into the house of wisdom, and you need all of those things ever eaten. My mom was not a great cook, but I'm so glad she fed me and that we had meals together. They sustained my life, and my mother was an extremely wise person, but she was not a great cook. I lived in the house that was built around wisdom, and it sustained and helped and nurtured my life. So we have the Proverbs of Solomon, chapters 10 and following, 375 of them. Why 375? Because there are no numbers in the Hebrew language, but you can equate numbers to the letters of the alphabet in their sequence, and then stacking those letters next to one another, and the 3 consonants that make up Solomon's name, those letters together in the order they are, indicate the number 375. So there are 375 Proverbs, because they're the Proverbs of Solomon. After that, we get a collection called The Sayings of the Wise. And here's something that blows my mind. This collection happens in the book of Proverbs, but there is an almost identical collection of 30 wise sayings in the ancient records of Egypt. It's called the Wisdom of Amenemopet. They're almost identical, and they date from, guess what, 1000 BC. In other words, about the time of Solomon. And by the way, Solomon wasn't married when he became king. And the first person he married was the daughter of the Pharaoh of Egypt. And I think that this collection is either something written by Solomon as a gift to his future father-in-law, or his future father-in-law said, what can I get for the guy who has everything? In any case, this seems to be wisdom that's shared across cultures. And then in the Proverbs, but not in Egypt, there's 5 more sayings of the wise attached to that. But I think it was probably part of wedding gifting at the time that Solomon got married. Then comes the second collection of the wisdom of Solomon. These were collected by Hezekiah's men. Now, Hezekiah lived more than 200 years after Solomon. But Hezekiah was living at the time that the Assyrians were destroying the northern kingdom and were attacking the south. And God, in God's good pleasure, spared the south at that time and sort of restored the strength of the kingdom as the Babylonians were attacking the Assyrians. And I can just see Solomon. Now, don't start laughing about this. I can just see Hezekiah, and don't start laughing about this, deciding to put on a political campaign, the theme of which was making Israel great again. I don't know if that ever struck anything with you, but what Hezekiah is doing, he's reaching for a past period in which the nation was great, and the nation was the greatest at the time of Solomon. And so he has his men go through all of the government records, and they pull out a whole bunch more of these sayings of Solomon. Then come two short collections, and we have no idea where these came from. There are different theories, maybe kings to the east and little lands to the east, probably trading partners with Solomon during Israel during Solomon's time, but Agur and King Lemuel. And we don't really have any clue where they came from, but they are Proverbs-like. They are different than Solomon's Proverbs, but I think they probably were gifts to Solomon in this time, and people knew Solomon's wisdom, and they're included too. But finally, that leads us to that poem at the end, which has been misused on Mother's Day so often, or it's been suggested on Christian college campuses as a checklist for guys dating gals and saying, you got to get someone who's like this, because, of course, if you date her and you get her, you don't have to do anything anymore because she does everything. But that is totally out of the picture. It's not meant for wives and mothers at all. This is an acrostic poem describing the benefits of being married to wisdom, whether we are female or male. The whole book comes round. The book of Proverbs is something you eat in morsels after you have gone through the dating relationship and you realize that you want to be married to folly, and you don't want to be married to folly, and you want to be married to wisdom. It's a really powerful thing.